The latest Pompey news, updates every day from the Pompey Sound news desk.
News from the other side of the world. Pompey starlets Hayden Matthews and Adrian Segicic have spent the best part of the previous 7 days down under. First based in Canberra for Australia's home leg of the so-called Anzac Ashes, then flying to Auckland for the second leg against their supposed rivals New Zealand. It's a rivalry so dear to the hearts of so many Antipodean football fans that the stadium were nearly half full for the two back-to-back fixtures. For Segicic and Matthews, this ordeal was bookended by a 23-hour flight from the UK to Australia and a 23-hour flight back to the UK, not forgetting a flight from Canberra to Auckland, which is 6 hours. That's a total of over 2 full days at 25,000 feet, punctuated by no less than 6 ascents and descents, and the associated pressure changes which can affect joints in the body, particularly the knees. Neither Matthews nor Segs got so much as a single minute on the pitch, and astonishingly, Segicic didn't even make the bench for the second of the 2 legs. It's reported that he watched the game from the stands. Australia's head coach Tony Popovich says, quote, "These are all young boys, and we're assessing to see where they are now. They have to be patient, and if the opportunity presents itself, I'm open to giving all of them an opportunity. Coming to camp is the recognition for what you've done at your club, but that doesn't necessarily equate to getting a cap."
If you were John Messino, you'd quite rightly be purple with rage that one of his star players, perhaps his star player so far this season, has had to fly 2 23-hour flights with a 6-hour flight in between, to sit on the bench unused in the first of these 2 meaningless matches, and then not to be even on the bench in the second of these 2 meaningless matches, to watch it from the stands. And Popovich, the Australian manager, says that they needed every opportunity to make assessments of where players are now. How do you assess a player who's sitting 50 rows behind you in the dugout in the stands? Is there an earthly reason why he didn't say to Segs after the first leg, "You're not even going to be on the bench for the second leg, so you don't have to fly with us from Canberra to Auckland, and you don't have to wait until it's today." That second game took place on the Tuesday of this week, the Tuesday before the Southampton derby. He's probably on a plane now, which is where he spent half of the last 7 days, on a plane at altitude, ascending and descending, and all the rigours that imposes on joints, particularly the knees, as Cassini Yengi will tell you. Now, John Messino is a great fan of international football. He defends the right of countries to call up players, no matter how much it impacts on their domestic playing career days, because after all, it's Pompey who pay these guys wages to do a job for them, to do the best they can for them on the pitch. Don't know how much Segs gets and Matthews gets in terms of remuneration for the ardour of a week like this, within spitting distance of such an important, proper game of football. And I'm not going to beat about the bush. The Southampton game is a proper game of football. This Anzac Ashes nonsense is Mickey Mouse tosh. And our star player is risking not only the pressure and possible injury in training, with apparently they did intense training out there in Canberra, in Auckland, but also there's the knock to his confidence of having to watch the game in his civilians, the second game. All those millions of miles away from home and the base where he should be training and focused entirely on working out how they're going to strategise the right result against that lot up the road. And instead, he's having this done to him. Now, Popovich might be a fine man, and he seems to be a pretty good manager, because Australia, would you believe, are ranked 24th in the world, up 2 places. Sound like Alan Freeman here. Up 2 places from last week's number 26. No, shut up. Stick with the point. They're ranked 24 in the world. That means they've got serious ambitions of doing quite well in the upcoming World Cup, where players will be flying more often than they'll be playing football again in order to fit in with the requirements being not so much a great World Cup as spreading the word about the game across the United States of America. Anyway, they've got their ambitions. Their ambitions are realistic, and Popovich wants to go to the Americas with as strong a squad as possible, and he wants to have a personal eyeball of Matthews and Segsy, because it's the only way you can actually determine what you've got. Talk to them, watch them on the training ground, get to know them a little bit, get to know what they look like at a distance of 50 yards with them sat at the back of the stands for a game which is meaningless anyway, and doubly meaningless for Segacic. We've got to remember that Australians are very precious about their international sport. They want to win. They want to win everything. Nothing else matters. Nothing mattered to Popovich in terms of Pompey at all. Totally focused on Australia's needs, on his needs. He wasn't a bad player. He turned out 130 times for Crystal Palace. That's his only incursion into the English game. The rest of the time he played in Japan. He played for some pretty obscure teams, one in Arabia, one in Australia. But he turned out quite often for Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace weren't a great force in those days, so he's not playing top-level Premier League football here. They went through manager after manager after manager, one of whom was former Pompey boss Terry Venables. And there was Trevor Francis, there was Steve Bruce. These managers came and went because the club was in dire state. Simon Jordan, who you'll know from Talk Sport and various other things, was the two-bit owner at one point. And the club was it always being threatened with relegation and administration, going bust or going down. So, he was a solid player, Popovich, reliable, 6'4", ominous, but he didn't pull up any trees. He wants to do the best he possibly can with Australia in the upcoming World Cup, and to him nothing else matters, and that's very Australian. Now, we've got a manager in John Messino who is just as ruthless and is really going places, Mr. Popovich. I wouldn't risk crossing him. You might be 6'4", but John could look after himself as well, verbally and any other way you want to play it. He's wronged us. He's put our noses out of joint. If Segs gets substituted off after 58 minutes because he simply hasn't got the legs because of all the jet lag and what have you, we'll know who we can blame. If he doesn't start because he's deemed to be not quite there, but he's on the bench and comes on for the last 10 minutes, hoping to score a couple because we've been hampered by selection problems as a result of this Australian farce, then we'll know who to blame. If he has to watch the game in the stands, well, at least he has good experience, and recent at that, of doing that. Thanks, Popovich, for nothing.
Former fan favourite Christian SAYDEE suffered the first red card of his career at the weekend, when, in the 68th minute against Lincoln, he showed too much enthusiasm for getting his body between an opponent and the ball, and in overstepping the ball to claim his territory he inadvertently appeared to stamp on Lincoln's Tom Bayliss. Christian, who has had a massive impact in his first few games for Wigan, was distraught, and misses the next 3 Wigan games. It was an eventful game against a Lincoln side, which boasted a flamboyant Towler at left-back and Rico Hackett up front. And SAYDEE was never far from the Actio N committing a foul in Wigan's own penalty.
Whoa, son, excuse me. You might have artificial intelligence, but sometimes you have artificial stupidity. Actio N is pronounced action, never far from the action. Carry on.
Which led to a penalty which was converted, and a superb assist, a pinpoint cross which was headed home by Wigan's Callum Wright. Minutes after SAYDEE's sending off Lincoln's Rob Street picked up a second yellow card for a high boot and, sent off for the offence, evened the numbers between the two sides for the final phase of the match. Lincoln fans were unanimous that SAYDEE's tackle was in no way dirty, more a typical clumsy striker's tackle. But his red card will do nothing to diminish his reputation as being a fearsome opponent.
We loved Christian SAYDEE, didn't we, all of us? He was far and away our favourite substitute. Our most favoured substitute that I can remember. Because when SAYDEE was brought on by John Messino, we knew we were going to get some fun. We knew that the opposition, sometimes who had been bullying us, knocking us around a little bit, we're not the biggest side, we're not the tallest side, and sides will decide to knock us around a little bit. But we knew that when Christian SAYDEE came on, he was our hero, because you bounce off him. And we loved it. We absolutely loved the fact that you couldn't knock him over. He was so strong, and had good look. He wasn't just a brick wall. He had great skill and great potential. It looks as though Wigan are unlocking that potential, perhaps, arguably, better than we did. If that's the case, I don't think we made a mistake. No one would suggest that we made a mistake in allowing him to develop his career by moving on. That's how we put it. We don't sack people. We don't, kick people out. We give them an opportunity to further enhance their football skills and their career by allowing other clubs to talk to them and do a deal that suits the other club, the player himself, and then almost by default, Pompey. But wouldn't it be nice if we were a goal down with 20 minutes to go at St Mary's on Sunday? Who's warming up? He'll show 'em. Meantime, good luck to the lad.
For those who indulge themselves in data-driven content, Southampton currently lead the XG charts in the Championship this season. The Saints have registered a whopping 9.3 expected goals through their opening 4 games, despite only finding the net 6 times. They've also created 14 big chances and have missed 8 of them. Now it's worth noting that 4.14 of that 9.3 total came on their opening day win against Wrexham, who themselves have the highest expected goals against this season, indicating that they are the worst defensive side through 4 games. They registered just 0.75 in their draw against Ipswich Town, and then 2.59 against Stoke City and then 1.81 against Watford last time out. Again, an asterisk is formed next to the loss against Mark Robins, Stoke side, as a lot of that 2.59 was generated after Divin Mabama was sent off with half an hour to go. But, whilst questions can be asked about how easy it has been to get that number up, what can't be disputed is Southampton's ability to create those chances. It's been a slow start due to a lot of player turnover at St Mary's this season, but now Will still has a couple of weeks with those who aren't away on international duty to work on things, one of which will be turning these chances into goals more regularly. While statistics and tactics are important, it's arguable that the raw emotion of the day will be enough to charge either side on towards the all-important 3 points and bragging rights over their rivals until late January when the two meet at Fratton Park. Especially from a Portsmouth standpoint, who have had to scratch and claw their way back to this point, whilst their South Coast rivals have revelled in top-half Premier League finishes and European tours. John Messino and his side will be aware of the threat Southampton pose, even more so now, with the likes of Tom Fellows and Finn Azaz in the side too, but on Derby Day, sometimes it's all about who shows more passion and a willingness to win on the field, rather than fancy play and a plethora of chance creation, which takes you over the line. Therefore, Portsmouth will need to be on it from the off if they are to taste victory against their bitter rivals.
Don't know what everybody else thinks about stat cricket, say, for example, or baseball, where they use stats inordinately. And that's because in cricket, these things are precisely measured. You know, if someone hits a 4, it's a 4. If they miss the ball, they miss the ball. It's a dot. If a team win, they get a certain amount of points, and you can add them up and divide them by the number of names, and you can come up with all sorts of statistics, such as the greatest statistic in sport, which is that Don Bradman, if he'd scored 1 run in his final Test innings, he would have been guaranteed a batting average in excess of 100. As it is, he was out first ball, and so his batting average now and forever will be 99.99. And that's a solid fact, though. But when it comes to football, there are solid facts. Of course, there's the scoreline. And in a sense, it's the only stat that matters. A 2-all draw is a 2-all draw, any way you cut it. Even if one team was totally superior for the whole of the game and leading 2-0 with 2 minutes to go, when the underdogs came and scored 2 lucky goals or disputed goals, that doesn't matter, and it can't really be measured aside superiority. Possession can kind of be measured, but take successful passes. If a centre-half receives the ball from his keeper, short, and plays it to the other centre-half, who then plays it back to him, are those 3 successful passes? They're hardly defence-splitting balls, are they? They don't require a great deal of precision. And yet that player is presumably credited with having made a successful pass. And that statistic then passes into the folklore that is the internet, and it becomes something that other coaches will look at when they decide, we're interested in a centre-half, and this guy's got some great stats. The business of creating goal-scoring opportunities that are kind of nailed on but nevertheless missed, or goal-scoring opportunities that aren't particularly nailed on but they are nevertheless some kind of an opportunity, that is so plausibly a matter of conjecture. It's one person's opinion against another person's opinion. Was that a nailed-on goal chance or a possible goal chance? And then there's that huge grey area in between. So football statistics, they're kind of interesting, but they're so open to interpretation that you can virtually diss them. So the fact that Southampton are leading the XG statistic for creating goal opportunities in the first games of so far of the season, you can totally discount it as having any relevance whatsoever when it comes to Sunday's derby game. And as our piece on that underlined at the end, it's all down to who wants it the most. It really is. Who wants it the most? And they're at home, and they've got the advantage of a home crowd, a considerable home crowd. We'll have 2,500 there, and they will be singing, their what's-its off. But the home side are going to be fuelled by potentially a greater set of inspirations than we will have going there. We have the Rorke's Drift inspiration. We have the kind of the underdogs. They're just down from the Premier League, and we're quite recently up from League One. So and they are worth 100 and something million pounds. Their squad. I must get the exact figure, but the point is this: when it comes down to it, at midday on Sunday, those statistics will matter not a jot. What will matter is the fire in the belly. The fire in the belly.